Hey everybody, it's Ryan Perry here with Simple Biz Support. I am super excited because I have partnered up with a great guy that has incredible knowledge about AI. And so we're going to dive into a weekly series talking about business, marketing, and how to use AI at a deeper level. So let's just get right into it. I would like to introduce to you Logan Monday with Logan Monday AI. Welcome, Logan, and thank you so much for joining me and just being willing to share this incredible knowledge that you have about AI. You know, I know we're going to talk a lot about ChatGPT, but you have an extensive knowledge about AI in general.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ryan. It's great to be here. I'm excited to share some insights with your audience and to talk more about artificial intelligence and AI and how people can use it for their benefit. So
Yeah.
let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. I like it. First, give me a quick, the real quick synopsis of what your background is and how you got into AI in the first place.
My background is in education and business, and in graduate school, I was in school during COVID, so I had time, like everyone else, to figure things out. And I decided that artificial intelligence was going to be kind of the future of what we're going to deal with. And so I researched on how to implement artificial intelligence in education and business within organizations. And that journey has led me to where we are today in consulting and working with small businesses and individuals who want to use AI for their benefit and in their work.
Right. And one of the very first things that you told me that kind of blew my mind when we first started talking was this story about Chat 3.5, because I think 4.0 had just came out at the time that we kind of connected. And the analogy that you gave me was 3.5 is kind of like a pond. It's stagnant, it's stale, it doesn't have a lot of new information. It is what it is. Chat 4.0, when it came out, you said it was more like a river. It was going to flow and ebb and evolve. Things could be added to it and those type of things. But then you said what about what's to come, or what's already available to some people?
Yeah, what's coming is that with those two analogies that you mentioned, I like to think of the way that artificial intelligence needs data, the way that we need water. Without it, we can't survive.
Right.
So GPT-3 is the equivalent of like a large lake now. When we first started talking, it was still getting good at what it could do, and it's improved a lot. So it's not stagnant anymore. It's just got more depth, and it's really grown a bit. Chat 4 has turned more into like a surging, kind of like a Mississippi or Amazon river, where it is kind of drifting in and out where it wants to go. And it's having more people use it. It's having more data in, but that means that the programmers are having less control over how it's outputting. So what's happened is something that's super interesting, is that those two programs are there, and then what's available at the highest levels in technology is kind of like the ocean of generative AI and those programs, which is it really goes back and forth and talks to you in real time, pulls the internet, and doesn't drift away. That's not going to reach any of us for a good while, but it's there, and it's remarkable what's happening. And what's happening just since we met and since ChatGPT came out is just crazy to think about. It's been 9 months since all this started.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about all of that, and I've noticed this just using 4.0 a lot, is that I want with my prompts, and we're going to dive into prompts, not in detail today, but hopefully most people know what a prompt is. That is, what is it that you want to ask ChatGPT? And so I'm trying to get very specific prompts, and I'm finding that the replies have shifted quite a bit.
Mhm.
today from what I was getting maybe 2 weeks ago or a month. So
Yeah.
that's a little
Yeah.
frustrating for me because it's like, oh, I had everything working just great with this prompt. I got the results that I wanted. And now it's actually state, I'll do a prompt that's got maybe 5 steps and I'll go, step one, do this, step two, do this, step three. And it's actually writing into the content step one. And I'm like, no, you've never done this before. I've even specifically asked you in the prompt, don't list the steps, and it still does it. And it's like, all right, it is what it is. So it's not perfect, but it's interesting how it's evolving. And I've seen some articles where they're actually saying it's getting dumber in some
Mhm.
cases, which is
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
interesting. And maybe that's a conversation for later. Today, I want to talk about business though, because
Okay.
you work one on one with business owners, you help solo
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, you help CEOs, presidents. Um,
Yep.
Being able to really use chat gtp as a tool, because that's what it is a tool.
Mhm.
How do you use it to effectively operate and manage a business? So you've got 5 things today, I believe you wanted to talk
Yeah.
about as far
Yeah.
as business goes. So let's go ahead and jump into that.
Yeah. So, what's great about what ChatGPT can do, and what's kind of changed with the people's response to it since it came out in November last year, was that it's really reaching people to understand it as more of an assistant
Hmm.
instead of a replacement.
Yeah.
It's not going to replace anyone's expertise and experience with their professional life or their personal life. What it can do is, as an assistant does, is that it enhances and your productivity and your performance, but most importantly, it can help speed up the stuff that you don't like to do.
Right.
So I know that in with solopreneurs and small business owners and then the CEOs, they want templates. They want stuff that's structured. They want to be able
Hmm.
to input things that they do daily, and ChatGPT can remember it, and then it helps them create new ones. And so that's
Right.
a great starting point. I recommend for people, if they're wanting to use ChatGPT for the first time, they've signed up and they're thinking, now what? Well, the easiest prompt in the world is to say, hey, my name is, and you put your name in there. You say, I'm making a email to my boss about this project I've been working on. Help me provide 3 points on it. And
Right.
ChatGPT will create it for you in seconds when normally it could take 20 minutes for you to think through it. And that's
Right.
just one of
Yeah.
the remarkable things about it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I found really beneficial, especially if you're kind of new to this and maybe I don't always know, I know what I want to ask, but then I'm thinking, how would I ask somebody? And it
Right, right.
doesn't always come out clear. And one of the things that I've found really helpful is just simply asking it, like you said, hey, I got to write this email. Help me. This is the situation, and then I'll ask, are there any questions that you have that will help you get this
Hmm.
done? And
Yeah.
then, I love that because then it'll just boom, boom, boom. Maybe it gives me 4 questions that it asks. In my response, I
Hmm.
do one, type out my reply, then I do two, type out my reply, and it knows exactly because it asked the questions. Hey, answer one, two, three, four, and I put them in one, two, three, four, and then it goes, oh, okay, and it's like magic. I love it.
Yeah, it really is wild how fast it operates. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, it's funny that I think the thing that people should take away from what you just shared is the mindset that you have, that you're engaging with it and kind of
Hmm.
instructing it the way that you would an assistant, and that you're
Right.
making it work for you without dictating terms. So, you know, it's allowing it to have that spontaneity and creativity to give you new ideas,
Hmm.
but you're not so focused on a prompt and getting that prompt right
Right.
that it keeps you from having ChatGPT give you new ideas, and that's crucial to using it successfully. So I hope your
Right.
audience takes away that.
Yeah. Okay. And so you kind of talked about one thing that's pretty basic, which is, okay, I just help me with this. And then we kind of added on to it that if you're not really sure what to ask, just ask it. Just
Yeah.
ask ChatGPT, hey, what other information would you like to know? that would be helpful. Boom,
Yeah,
simple.
I think one of the cool things that I do is like I'll have a problem or an idea for something,
Hmm.
and I've made family itineraries using ChatGPT. So
Mm,
I'll go to it and say, the three of us are heading over to I'll just give an example, like Key West.
hmm.
And we're wanting to visit, and we're going to be here for this many days, and we're going to travel this way, and our budget is this much. Provide an itinerary, and give us recommendations for places to visit and see while we're there, and it does it in like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
And I'll take that and take it to the wife, and we'll sit down, and she'll say, I like this, I don't like this, we'll go through this, and then I'll add that in later to it, and then it comes up with something, and then that's it. I don't have to
right.
stress about it or like look
Yeah.
on Google the whole time because it's pulled the info from Google already.
Hmm. And let's talk about something that I think is really important that you talked about was the fact that you had this conversation, you went and talked to the wife, and maybe you
Hmm.
came back in a couple hours or a couple of days, but you can actually re-engage in that
Hmm.
conversation, which
Yeah.
is, I think that's an important part to note also for people that are like super new to chat GTP and are curious about more in the way it works or it can work.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about the way it's designed is that when you open up those chats on the left side of your screen, you'll see the ones that have been there. And what ChatGPT does is that when you go back to the chat and click on it, it opens back up the whole thing in front of you. So it remembers all of what you told it, that prompt that you were talking about earlier. If you wrote it in there, you will tell it, "Hey, ChatGPT, remember the prompt that we worked on with this, wording," and it
Hmm.
will say, "Yes, I can see that," and it's scanned it, and then you'll start anew without having to like redo all the tone and the work
Right.
that you put into it. It's a great way to utilize it as a resource and not have to repeat your work.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if I'm doing something that's repetitive, the
Hmm.
other thing that's nice is because I'm in that prompt, I'll just tell it, do blah, blah, blah. Here's the information. It gives me a
Yeah.
response. And I go, okay, great. I'll just say, here's another one. And I'll just throw in whatever, the content is that I want it to modify. And it automatically knows what I want to do. And if in the first one I said, okay, that's good, but do this also, or
Hmm.
don't do this, I don't have to repeat that for the next piece of content that I want it to modify because it has contextual awareness of the conversation that we've been having, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that's a really great point, and I'm glad you brought that up because that what we talked about before you said that was kind of like the first part of how artificial intelligence and ChatGPT works, which is
Hmm.
it takes general information and then gives you specified outcomes to like a task or something that you want to create. But
Hmm.
what you just shared was kind of like the next step of what you want the way you work with it,
Mm.
which is you are able to um, use it in real time to adjust as you would when you're like revising something with a real person.
Right.
So it doesn't just come about in a way that is inaccurate because it's forgotten something. It's
Hmm.
that it's changing with you. And sometimes you have to remind it, hey,
Right.
do not adjust in that way. Like, I don't want you to do that because of like
Right.
how algorithms work. And when you're revising, which is that second step of the kind of the process that we've been talking about,
Hmm.
you can tell it like, hey, that's really good. I like that response, but cut it down by like 10% or
Right.
20% or cut it down by four sentences. And so doing so allows you to kind of manage its output without getting
Mhm.
overwhelmed by it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's important because I mean, the reality is that I think a lot of people think that, okay, I just go to chat GTP, I go click, click, and it just going to pop out magic every time.
Right.
And I don't have to edit or change or
Right. Right.
modify. No, it's until it's got an implant in your brain that actually knows all the thoughts that you're thinking.
Please don't. I don't want that at all.
Yeah,
No way.
but it's I mean, because they talk about how it will hallucinate, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
thing
That's
will
that's
hallucinate and it'll grab facts that aren't factual, or it'll create things that sound fabulous but aren't legit, I guess is the best way of saying hallucinating. You probably have more examples than I do.
No, it ties back into the example from the from earlier where I was talking about how ChatGPT 4 is kind of like the Amazon or Mississippi River,
Mm,
where
mm-hmm.
it's gotten so much data and so much volume in it that it's not exactly manageable in a sense of how like ChatGPT 3.5 is, where it's a big lake, where you're
Right.
managing the depth of the information and the data versus the way it flows.
Mm-hmm.
And that hallucination is another synonym for it is drift. So
Mm,
it's like a
mm-hmm.
river that gets too big and
Right.
drifts out along its banks or overflows. So it's it both of those words are right. And what it's doing is that the programmers can't seem to, they still can't get a handle on it.
Yeah.
It's like this is the first time in history where like they're creating this thing on the like as on
Sure.
the fly.
Right.
So they're figuring it out. And it is important that like people realize that when you're doing the second part of working with it and you're revising and you're going back and forth on it, that like you really are more comfortable where you're using it to help you finish like the 5% of a project
Mm-hmm.
instead of using it to create the 90% of the project that you need, right? Because of that drift and that
Oh,
hallucination,
okay.
you're
Yeah.
not you're not guaranteed that the whole project will be worthwhile. But
Right.
if you use the whole project that you yourself or your team has made, and then you use ChatGPT to help finish the last 5-10% and push you
Mm-hmm.
over the finish line, then that
Right.
drift and hallucination is way less likely to happen.
Right. So it's almost the kind of way I was visualizing it, because a lot of business people are used to a funnel, if you will. Let me switch here.
Uh-huh.
Where you've got a lot of prospects at the top, and then it kind of narrows down, and you finally get
Uh-huh.
what you want out of the
Yeah.
bottom, which is a buyer. But
Yep. I'm with you.
if we take that same funnel concept with Chat GTP, is maybe start kind of broad, give it some things, because one of the things that you said is you don't necessarily need to dictate exactly, because
Hmm.
it'll think out of the box in ways that you never knew were possible sometimes,
Hmm.
which is fabulous. So kind of have a broad um, prompt, if you will, that is
Okay.
obviously specific to what you want. But then as you getting those responses, you can start narrowing down from the
Hmm.
wealth of information that it has, and just kind of narrow it. And it might take you two or three or four or five prompts, depending on how technical it is. But what's so nice is once you get to the bottom and you got exactly what you want, ideally, if you need to replicate it, like a lot of times I need to replicate the same thing, once I've got it really narrowed down to that final funnel where it's just dropping quality content,
Hmm.
then that's great, because I can just throw in, here's the next thing I want you to do. Do this one with this, do that with this. And it is great, but I tell you, sometimes I struggle with it still, trying to get it to that point where it's giving me stuff that isn't relevant. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not relevant. How can we like narrow it down? So I
Yeah,
feel like
totally
I feel
agree.
like we could totally drift on this conversation ourselves. Um, so just getting back to business, we've already kind of talked about, the quick prompt. Like I've already used it a number of times for emails, like you said, where I don't know. I'll tell you another quick and easy place where I use it is I have a client that sells shoes online. And so we're pushing for reviews. And instead of replying to reviews myself, I just told it, hey, you're a customer service for a large online retail shoe store, and I need you to reply to this review. And then I copy and paste the client's review. I double check it, tweak it if I need to, copy and paste it as a reply back to the client, saying, hey, thank you. Because a lot of reviews aren't always positive. And
Yeah,
so it's nice having um, somebody who's not emotionally attached to your business to give you some feedback on that.
yeah, yeah. That's a
Um,
good point.
yeah, I
Yeah,
just thought about that. Um, use that with your training, though. I think that's important because, that's one of the great things about consultants is that they're not emotionally connected to your business. And so a lot of times they can give you better answers than you can when you're emotionally connected to your business.
Yeah, I like to call that the cold water effect. You're throwing cold water on them.
Yeah.
They might not like it, but it's good for
Right.
them. It wakes them up,
Sometimes
and
you just gotta come on, folks.
yeah, I've learned to do that with a smile and be
Yep.
respectful. But yeah,
Yep.
that's some cold
Yep.
water right there.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
But it's important.
and it is important. And what else is something that you mentioned about that? And there are two things that I want is that I hope for your audience and those that are listening to take away from this is one, you talked about how you're getting the broad prompt and revisions and
Hmm.
narrowing it down the funnel, and then you got it the way you wanted it. It's good for your audience to think of, whether that's like if they were doing it for like emails or social media posts, that they copy paste that and save it like in a separate
Right.
separate
Yep.
place,
Yep.
because you can take that copy paste, bring it back to ChatGPT in the
Yep.
same chat and say, okay, we've worked on this, this is great, this is how I like my tone, the
Right.
words that I use, the length of this.
Hmm.
However, I need the topic to be different, so adjust.
Right.
And instead of you doing that in like 30 minutes, it does it in 3 seconds.
Right.
And that's just something that I hope that your people listening really take from, because that
Yep.
knowledge management really speeds up what you're doing without taking away your own
Yes.
like personal touch.
Yep. And one of the things I've done, and it took me a couple of months to figure this out, is exactly what you just said, is have a notepad. I name what it
Yeah,
is. And then I have a folder and under marketing that's just called AI.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it may be under email, it may be under, customer service, whatever it is. And I have all my prompts there. So it's quick and easy. And you also brought up another important thing is that I think sometimes when we have a prompt that we like, one of the things I'll do is I'll ask Chat GTP, I'll go, hey, based on our entire conversation, what is the best way for me to prompt you in the future for this? So I'll ask
oh yeah,
it to
that's a
create a
good point.
prompt,
Yep,
right? Because
yeah.
we've already gone through, we may have gone down 5 levels. And finally, I've got something that I like. I'll go, hey, give me a prompt for this. And most of the time, it works out pretty good, which is nice.
Yeah, what you just described is really advanced, and I want to be clear that like what we started out with is there's three types of prompts, and it's called like a general prompt, and these are the
Mm-hmm.
fun ones. These are the ones where it's like, um, take Tupac's album and write it as a 1700s sailor or something,
Right, right,
and like
right,
it might not be totally right, but it's hilarious
right.
to see what it comes up with.
A limerick would be
And then
fun.
there are like the detailed prompts that you and I have talked about, and like most people know, like make a email to my boss, or
Right.
write a social media post on for an Instagram caption, or
Mm-hmm.
to share on a fun filter for Snapchat.
Right.
And so what you just described is called a system prompt. And that
Mm.
prompt is where you're telling ChatGPT to take the perspective and the point of view so that it doesn't change that perspective or point of view until you instruct it to again. And
Mm.
when it maintains that consistency,
Right.
what it does is that it allows itself to keep a focus that's really not natural for people, right? Because we're naturally just
Right.
kind of like enjoy getting a little having some daydreams and thinking about stuff.
Right.
And ChatGPT doesn't do that. And that's a great benefit for it, is that it will help you stay focused on one specific task and one point of view
Mm-hmm.
until you instruct it not to. And some of the best things that I've gotten out of it are doing what you just shared, like getting it down and then finishing and saying, okay, after doing all this work, what are 3 or 4 prompts that I can use in the future to get back to this point again where
Right.
you would follow it?
Yeah.
So you're just working with it and instructing it and learning from each other, kind of like a really, really good assistant would do. And that's a huge tip, by the way, for people,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
most people aren't even able chat like prompt engineers don't even want people to know that you could do that because then it takes their job away.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this early on, for people who are new to AI in general, but specifically Chat GTP, is we've always, I mean, the reality is we live in a culture that is tells you, they like to tell you what to do. This is how you
Hmm.
do things. And so that creates restrictions on our imagination and what we're able to do. Chat GTP blows the lid off of that.
Yeah,
So I think the
yeah, yeah.
biggest problem is people are just overwhelmed because there's too many options. And so just breaking those options down and simply just asking it,
Hmm.
like you said earlier, you don't have to dictate the terms. Just ask Chat GTP, like, what do you need to know in order to assist me? And
Yeah.
then once you figure that out, hey, whatever, um, is just don't try as an individual. Don't feel like you have to do it right.
Mm,
Consider it a
mm,
playground where there are no limitations, because the worst
mhm.
thing it's going to do is say, I'm sorry, I forget what it says, but something along the lines, I'm an artificial program. I can't tell you how to feel or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
That's okay. And then
yeah,
you ask it, well, what can you do?
yeah,
And it
yeah.
will let you know.
Yeah, it's really reassuring that, because it really did pop out of nowhere, for like,
Yeah.
general technology use, that people ask these questions and that, it's kind of built into it for its own limitations.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a good boundary for that people to realize that otherwise there isn't a boundary.
Right.
And, it's up to you to decide if you want to use it, how you use it.
Right.
But I think it really reflects like, how much fun you want to have with it because
Hmm.
it's only gonna get better and you're gonna be able to keep using it for decades now, really.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like the way when Excel first came out and like no one really knew what Excel was unless you were
Right.
like in that business part of the world,
Hmm.
accounting. But now everyone has to do something with Excel sheets, right? Like
Right.
in
Yep.
some way. Well, this is like the opposite, where it's like it came out and everybody knows how to use it and has to use it and can use it. But you can make it as specific as you want for your own work. You don't have to
Right.
go and like live in accounting to use it. It will never have anything to do with accounting if you don't tell it to.
Right.
And so that's what's so great about it is that it you can make it work for you in
Yep.
the way that you want. And it could be you're just making a family trip itinerary, or you're
Hmm.
telling it to create better prompts and instructions, or you're telling it to help you come out with ways to use 30 minutes to get some exercise. And
Right.
maybe like you hurt your wrist or your leg and you're like, I still want to get out, what can I do, I feel kind of
Right.
down. It can
Yep.
give you options for that,
Right.
and then you can act on it. And so
Yeah.
I just want people to realize that it's in their control to use it for their benefit, and its possibilities are limitless.
Yeah. Yeah. We're coming up on 30 minutes. I don't think we're going to get through all five. I think we have kind of drifted, as you said earlier, which I expected, because there's just so much to say. But I do want to mention. So let's get back to business. I'll give you a real case story where it was me specifically this morning. You bring up Excel. So working with a client from a marketing point of view and going, okay, one, we're coming into fall, so being again, this is related to shoes, so styles are shifting.
Right, right.
Asking
Okay.
some questions like, I already know what it is, but it's like maybe Chat GTP will give me something different. So let's go in, see what it comes up with. And then the other thing that I got thinking, because I'm on 4.0, so I've got the paid version. I don't know if
Okay.
it's Pro, I forget what they call it. But if you go into your settings, they have where you can upload content now. So you can
Okay.
actually upload files. Do you know what that's called by chance?
In
Otherwise, I'm going to
the
have to look it up in
Yeah,
Chat GTP.
I
And of course, it's on my other screen. All right. I don't have it. But anyway, y'all Google it. I'm sorry, or I'll put something up showing how people where that's at. But
Okay.
you can upload files. So I uploaded a file. I took the client's history from a year and a half, the last year and a half, and I'm asking it things like what percentage of sales are new customers versus returning customers. Now, before you talk about Excel, these are things that I would have had to search online, figure out what is the, how do you do all the special things, which row and all that. I didn't do that. I exported from their database. I gave it to Chat GTP. The very first thing I asked it was, what can you tell me about this spreadsheet? Because I wanted to make
Uh-huh.
sure it could read it without any problems. So I'm just going to ask a general question. And then it says, oh, it says this, 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 and this. So we've got customer, we've got order numbers, we've got dates, we've got number of products, we've got sales. And I'm like, perfect. What percentage of customers only ordered once versus more than once? And it goes, oh, well, you've got X number of customers. This many of them only ordered once. This number of them, we're going to have to divide this and multiply by 100. And it's telling me what it's doing. And
Yeah.
then it goes and it reads the Excel file, spits it out, say thank you very much. Let's target our the 10% best clients that we have. All right. Hey,
Okay.
ChatGPT. I don't know why they made that such a difficult thing to say.
Programmers.
Yeah, it's like uh, based on sales, list out the top 10% of clients.
Yeah.
Does that? I can go, okay, in the last 6 months, tell me this. And because there's a date for every time somebody placed an order and the date ends at some point, right? Because it doesn't know what year it is, I'm assuming, or what the date is. But the,
Hmm.
the Excel spreadsheet has dates. So it just goes and goes, okay, this is what happened. So nice because, again, kind of going back to what you said early on, if you just treat it like an assistant, like I
Hmm.
don't need to know how to use Excel. I just need to know what is the information that I want. Go here, assistant.
Yep.
Here's the file. Tell me about it. And then I blow your mind is that there are people that have databases, huge databases, research. You can download those, national, international researches that are in Excel files and databases. You can download that and then start asking ChatGTP. So if you're in business and you need the research in industry,
Hmm.
maybe there's some sort of industry database out there that's going to be really important that tells you, hey, in the next 5 years, we expect a 25% growth in
Yep.
this vertical within your business. That might be important to know. These are
Yeah.
things that you can ask ChatGTP.
Such a tongue twister.
It is. It's the worst. I only
Well,
tolerate it because it just simplifies life so much.
yeah, and
When it
to kind
works
of
the way I want to, it
when it
simplifies
works
things
the way
for
you
me.
want to, I
Yeah.
agree. Well, to wrap up with you now today on this, I'll say that for everybody, remember that ChatGPT can work like their assistant, and
Yep.
so to work with it and to use it so that they can instruct it for their benefit. And that's kind of like the first level of what you're doing is just kind of working with it, telling it what's going on. And then the second part is what you were describing, which is having like more detailed prompts and like really telling it
Mm-hmm.
the outcome that you want. And then that third area is where you tell it to stay focused in one type of mindset of like, you're a data processor. You are going to, use this Excel sheet and crunch the numbers to find what I need
Right.
to for my business and the vertical that I operate in.
Yep.
And, it ties back into the point of um, I really emphasize that, it's your assistant. Talk to it, revise with it,
Yep.
adjust with it, let it know when it did something that you really like, and the writing that it created really
Right.
reflects the way that you are and what you write. And it'll remember that. And then also remember that, it's not going to do a good job at making the project, but it'll do a good job of taking what you have from 90% of your project and helping you finish the last 5 to
Right.
10%.
Yep.
So those are the kind of the big points that I hope people take away with this that really matter for them in their business. And I think next time it would be great if we have another video to go in length about like marketing, because you can have content marketing, you can go through table formats on it and like workflows and how it really can make things a lot easier for people. I use it
Yes.
myself. I just tell it no emojis. I like emojis, but not like on LinkedIn posts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you obviously haven't been on Instagram lately.
I got a 15-month-old. I'm too busy
Okay.
running
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Well, hey, Logan, I really do appreciate it. Excited for this series of videos. For people that are interested in learning more about you and the training that you offer, where can they go?
Yeah, real simple. You can look me up on LinkedIn at Logan Monday, or you can go to my website, loganmondayai.com. And the email is loganmondayai@gmail.
All right, perfect. All righty, sir. That is it for now. Trying to find the right button here. So, if you got any questions, comments, thoughts about what we've talked about, feel free to leave those down below. Additionally, if there is a topic that you would like to hear specifically about that's related to ChatGTP, AI in general, and business, be sure to let us know, because this is going to be a weekly series, and ideally it's going to go on a long time because I don't think chat gtp is going to go anywhere. So we're excited to have these conversations and just allow people to get smarter about AI. Until next time, take care.